Let's see. Okay, now it's working. Great. Here we go. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. I was having some trouble with my connection, but it seems that it works now. And I think Pat's going to join us, my partner at Made For, and we're looking forward to the conversation. Okay, so we'll just wait for him for a second to pop up. And nice to see so many people joining already. Hi from London, all over. That's what I love about this. You get to connect with so many people. Argentina, one of my favorite places in the world. Okay, so now, and let's see. There he is. Great.
What's up? We did it.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. All right. Well, we pushed through the technical difficulties. Thanks everyone for being on. I'm Pat. To our members that are joining, you know Blake and I. To those that follow Blake, you know Blake. You may not know me. Blake and I co-founded Made For together and been friends for a number of years. So excited to spend a few moments today to talk with you all a little bit about Made For, but more about just the entrepreneur side of things, of starting a business, and in particular, starting a business during a particularly challenging time. So maybe what we'll do, Blake, is you and I can just kind of riff for a bit, take some lessons learned that you've learned from your experience, both in Tom's and other ventures that you've started, and then maybe we see what applies to Made For, and talk about what we're navigating right now. And I think we've got a few questions teed up from that people have shared in advance, so we'll make sure to get to those. But I think as an opening question, what I want to know is, you started Tom's during a recession, and now you're starting Made For during a whole host of crises. What's the deal? Is that part of your secret to starting a successful business, is a launch during a challenging time? What's up?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one of my great mentors, very successful entrepreneur, when after I started Tom's, I remember he told me, he said, for an entrepreneur, you should never waste a good recession. And what he meant by that is oftentimes during uneasy or uncertain times, big businesses really pull back. They stop, marketing so much. They control cost. They're less aggressive with kind of getting their message out. And so it leaves space for entrepreneurs and new ideas, because I think that's when people are looking for new ideas more than ever. And so by no means did I time it on this way on purpose. I think that would just be crazy. But I do think that at any time in any economic environment, if you have a good idea and you work hard, you can make a success out of your idea.
I think one of the things that just stands out for me, knowing you both as a friend, but then also seeing you on the business side as a leader, is that you really do internalize that. You look for anything that appears to be a setback, you try to figure out how to turn that into an opportunity. And one story that I really love from your time at Tom's is when you guys accidentally placed a couple extra zeros on an order of white shoes. Can you talk about that a little bit? And I think it's just such a great kind of look into your mindset and how you approach business.
Sure. So in the early days of Tom's, we made all of our purchase orders with the factory just using an Excel spreadsheet. And one of my very first employees and one of my very first interns, Jonathan, was in charge of placing the orders. And he went to place an order for, I think, 10,000 white shoes, which was a lot of shoes for us back then. And took up a lot of cash to order those shoes and hold that inventory. And accidentally, he hit another zero, and he accidentally ordered 100,000 pairs of white shoes, which literally could cripple a business and almost crippled ours. And so we didn't have a choice. The factory was very helpful, and they said, we'll give you plenty of time to pay this, not in the typical 30 or 60 days, because we understand that a mistake was made, but we're going to have to get paid over the next year. And so we had to sell the shoes. And so we had a bunch of ideas on how we could sell more white shoes, because it wasn't the most popular color by any means. And one of the ideas is because they were white, is we could treat them like a canvas and let artists paint them and then actually sell them for more money because they'd be the artist edition. And so our normal entries were $40. We decided that we would charge $60 for the artist painted one, and then we'd give the artist half the money that we made extra, so we'd give them $10. So if an artist could paint a lot of shoes relatively quickly, they could make a good amount of money doing this. And we had several artists do it, but one in particular, our good friend Tyler Ramsey, he was the one who really took this challenge and it went bananas. I mean, his shoes were our #1 selling shoe, and we sold through the 100,000 in just a couple months, and it helped our business a ton. We actually made more money on it. And so that is an example of something that you could have looked at back. We just made a fatal mistake in this business, and it turned out to be something that became a huge part of the culture of Tom's and our designs and what people love the most.
I love that. It's such a great story, and it maps a little bit, honestly, to something that we experienced very early on with Made For, and it's that, you know, despite all of the thought and attention and planning we put into this, for whatever reason, not once did it ever occur to me that at some point in this process that we were actually going to have to build and assemble kits. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with Made For, it's a 10-month program. Every month we send a new physical kit out to someone with science and a tool and some research and a challenge designed around helping you grow closer to a mindset and a particular behavior change habit. But we did all this thinking, we designed this great program, and then we placed these orders. And I'll never forget Lindsay, one of our founding teammates at Made For, came in and she said, "All right, the people are here with the first kits and everything has started to arrive." I'm like, "All right, great." And thinking we'll walk out and we'll take a couple pallets off and we'll ship our kits out. It'll be great. And I walked out there, and they had 19 pallets of flat packed boxes that had to be assembled and built, and all of these pieces that we had to, our small team at the time, I think there were 3 of us, and we had to figure out, how do we build these kits? And so I remember you and Lindsay and Erica, and we called in a few friends to come in and help us assemble these kits. And our original onboarding kits, they took us almost 20 minutes to assemble each kit. Something that was no way was it scalable, but it was just, it was a lot. And I think the challenge from that, or the friction that we faced there, in some ways it brought us so much closer to the members and to understanding, hey, what are all of the things that go into building these kits, and ultimately allowed us to figure out how we transitioned out of that and design better kits and scale in a way, or move our operations in a way that allows us to scale more effectively. And so had we never done that, had we outsourced that from the beginning, I think we would have missed a tremendous opportunity there. So I just remember sitting in the office when walking out and seeing those pallets, and I was like, all right, so this is Blake's 18-wheeler white shoe moment.
Exactly.
And there it is. So.
And every business has that. I mean, for people who are watching right now and are starting businesses, it's hard. I mean, and it's hard because you're trying to get, customers, but it's also hard because there are things that happen that you could never anticipated happening. And they do. And so largely what I think makes someone successful in business or in life is how you deal with the challenges, not how you do when everything's going your way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It feeds well. And so Megan Huber asked a question that I think you'll find particularly relevant. But she asked, when hiring and leading your team, how do you create a company culture that encourages your team members to be all in on the movement and vision? And obviously both of those are such critical components, both to Tom's and then also what we're doing at Made For. But do you have any thoughts on that as it relates to Tom's, or what we're doing now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I think I definitely did this with Tom's, and I think, Pat, as you lead Made For every day, I see this happening with the team that we've assembled, and that is, really give people empowerment in what they do, so really, create an organization that is more flat and that is more where everyone has a real vested interest in the success, but isn't just like autonomously doing a job, but they're coming in every day and they get the opportunity to really contribute to the movement and what you're creating. and they have autonomy to make decisions, take risks, make mistakes. I mean, I think that's a huge part of it, is having a culture where it's okay to make mistakes. We just learn from our mistakes so that people really feel empowered that they're contributing in a big way.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so interesting to me when we see, the further I get into business and being an entrepreneur, the more I see there's so many direct parallels between special operations and my time in the SEAL teams and what it means to navigate a startup and to be an entrepreneur. And a big part of what allows people in the special operations community to be successful is that we have very clear alignment and clarity on the mission and the purpose. And certainly the Made For team hears me talk about this a lot, but like, let's make sure we're perfectly aligned and clear on what the mission is. And then as leaders, make sure I get out of the way to empower people to act and to run as far and as fast as they can towards that mission. And that same agility that you talk about, I think allows us to punch over our weight and to move towards our mission. And I think we at Made For, we try to be really clear and very thoughtful and deliberate in terms of bringing new people onto the team to make sure they really understand what the bigger mission is, that we really believe a better world begins with the best you, and that change happens at the individual level. And that's what drives us every day. And if people are excited about that, then they can find a home at Made For. And if they're not, then maybe it's not the right place for them. But yeah, very, very cool. All right. So Johnny Bear 51 Cooks asked, what is the most life-changing advice you've ever received?
Wow, that's a good one. I think one particular idea and piece of advice always comes back to me, and that was by an amazing entrepreneur out of Texas named Bob Dedman. And I asked him that same question, Johnny. What's the best advice that you've ever received? And this man is now long past, and he was in his late 70s when I asked him, and he told me, the more you give, the more you live. And this is someone who had started with nothing and made over $1 billion through many businesses. And to see someone who had been so successful still focus most of his decisions on how can I give myself, my time, my knowledge, my resources on a day-to-day basis. And that's what kept him fulfilled and he thought helped his businesses so much.
Very powerful. The more you give, the more you live. That really resonates with me. And I think when I think about this, it's less a piece of advice, but more so examples that people and teams have set for me. And I think one in particular is I had a chance to work for a man named General Votel, and he was at the highest levels of inside special operations and an amazing leader. But he always paid attention to the most junior person and understanding what was going on with them and how could he serve them. And he always put his people first. And I think whether you're putting your people first or your mission first, this idea that your actions are in service of something outside of you and greater than you is just a really powerful way to move through the world. So and I think it maps well to what Bob said to you. So awesome. Cool. All right. Let's see. So Hassie asked, how can I do the 1-for-1 model for my startup brand? This is my dream. How do you think about that? Obviously, a number of people have followed the 1-for-1 model that you've set in business in transformational ways. But
yeah, I think the thing that I always say is that, like, if you want to incorporate giving or a bigger purpose in your business, it's an incredible platform and reason to start a business. I think specifically with the 1-for-1 model, and this is kind of a very technical thing in business, is you have to have a product that has high margins. Because in order to give something away every time you sell it, you need to have a lot of margin with the thing that you're selling. Otherwise, you can't make money and do it. And so in the fashion industry, for instance, the things that have the highest margin are, sunglasses, shoes, perfume even. And so that gives you the margin to do it. And so I always say is that you can't give unless you are building a sustainable business. And so you got to make sure you have those high margins so that you can do it.
Very cool. All right. I saw someone posted a question just now. They asked, what do you look for in teammates when you're building a team? So in your early days of Tom's, I know you followed a very unique model at the time. Maybe you should share that with people. And then,
I mean, I think for me, and I still don't think it's changed much, is it's all about attitude. It really is. there are certain people in the world that, look at things, the glass, half full and not half empty. The people that want to contribute, want to be part of something bigger than themselves, and that it just comes out of their attitude. And I think that's something that you can really see when you get to know someone. It's really a mindset. And as I think about one of the things that is a big part of the Made For program, and what we're really working on is helping create like what we call mindset intervention, where we really help people go from this mindset of a fixed mindset where they feel like everything in their life is kind of the way that it is and they don't have the opportunity to change, and life's just going to kind of go on the way it's going, versus a growth mindset. And that's someone who really looks at the challenges that they have in life and see how they can grow from that. And I think that growth mindset and that attitude is really, really important when choosing teammates. And I actually learned that through reading a book by one of my favorite entrepreneurs, and that's Yvon Chouinard, who started Patagonia. And in his first book, Let My People Go Surfing, he said, it is much easier to teach a climber business than a business person to climb. And what he meant by that is, if you have the right attitude, you can learn anything in business. But if you're a business person that is fixed in their ways, that can be a hindrance to, especially a startup or a growing company.
Well, I have a feeling that's why we're on the same team. That was going to be my answer as well, growth mindset. If we can find people with a growth mindset and, the underlying character and values and alignment on the mission, then that's all we need. And from there, we can tackle any problem or pursue any mission. So awesome. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is a great question, and I'll be curious to hear your answer on this. So a Salty Soul asked, what was your biggest challenge getting Made For off the ground, and how are you continuing to introduce more people to the program? And maybe I'd love your thoughts on biggest challenge.
I mean, I think the challenge is, the biggest challenge was that we launched it, 5 days before our country went into quarantine because of COVID. And so, we had, and just like in many things in business and entrepreneurship, we had a really well thought out, well designed plan. We had done a year of beta testing with over 800 people, and we were ready to go. And we were really ready to tell our story and to, use social media and use all forms of media to get our story out there. But as soon as, COVID hit, the news cycle and social media and everything, and rightfully so, was just, monopolized by that message and what people need to do and staying home and the fear and the uncertainty. And so it was really challenging. I mean, it was really challenging for us those first few months, especially during the quarantine, for us to be able to break through and get people to know about what we're doing. And the people who did hear our message and did sign up, I think that's one of the most rewarding things that's happened so far with Made For, is that we got to see how Made For was so helpful to people when they were stuck in their homes and when they were going through all this uncertainty. But definitely that was the biggest challenge. And then today it's continuing to be a challenge because there is, so much out there. It's really hard to, cut through the clutter sometimes. And so that's why we work so hard. And I'm looking forward to when we're not in such a COVID environment, where we'll be able to go out there and speak and meet people and share our stories and share the stories of Made For members who've had incredible success, because really it's people's stories and the experiences and transformations that people have that will get more and more people to sign up for Made For.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And going back even to the, turning challenges into opportunities, launching in the midst of a pandemic when people are stuck at home, actually probably ended up being a little bit of a silver lining for us, because honestly, for our program, it's hard to imagine a better thing, because you can take care of yourself, you can build a more resilient mindset, you can establish better habits and learn how to grow through adversity, and you never have to leave your home if you don't want to. And so that's been an interesting thing as well, as we see HR professionals go through and now seeing a lot of corporate partners sign on to find ways to take care of their teammates and team members that they have a distributed workforce. It's actually playing very well for us. But I think the challenge for us, at least one of the challenges that I've seen, is that oftentimes in the marketplace, it's easy to sell bright, shiny objects and quick fixes and fads, and that's kind of what we all want. We want to figure out like what's that next greatest thing and that bright shiny object. And it's not really, when we did the work and the research alongside, Dr. Andrew Huberman and John Rady and Evelyn Tribbley and Roy Cordial and all these amazing advisors, what we found is that it's not these high-speed hacks. It's rather some very foundational practices, some stuff that we're probably all familiar with, but engaged in a very specific way that's aligned with the way our brain and the body is designed in order to bring about this change. And we tell our members all the time that, look, change doesn't happen overnight, and there's really power in small steps over time. And so our whole program, it's a little bit of a novel and new approach in the marketplace, in that we say, look, the value of Made For isn't in our cool packaging and the brand and the tools and the science and the advisors and the conversations that you and I have with our members. Really, the value comes from the effort that we compel you to exert over a sustained period of time. And I feel like that's a little bit different for people to wrap their mind around. And so how do we educate people about that in a short, pithy way through a social ad or through on our website? It's challenging and something that we're still trying to navigate. But I think, for everyone that's on that, is starting a company, and that, ultimately, I think something that Blake did really, really well, and his whole team at Tom's, is that he empowered his customers to tell the story, that they became the ambassadors of Tom's. And I think, we believe that if we serve our members well, that our members will do the same thing and help us tell our story and grow future classes. And I think that's really how we create a movement. And that's something that, Blake, I think you know more about than probably anyone else, is like, how do you start and create a powerful movement for change, for positivity? And so that's how I think about it.
And I think one thing that is important to note in any form of movement is it has to happen grassroots. It can't happen it doesn't happen with advertising or online ads or anything else. Like, really it starts with, a small group of people who have a transformative or formative experience, and then they share that with their friends, and they share that with their friends. And so you have to be patient too. Like, you have to have a long range vision when you're creating a movement, because it's not something that is done through flashy advertising or a trend or something like that. And so for entrepreneurs that are watching this and who, are struggling, and it is a challenging time, and they just feel like they can't get the momentum that they need, it's just, you got to stick with it, because you never know when those lucky breaks are going to come. But they usually do come if you just continue to build whatever you're building, one happy customer or member at a time.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's so powerful. Do you, I know we're just coming up on time, but we got started a little bit late, so maybe we'll go an extra minute. As you look towards 2021, Blake, is there anything that you're excited about, whether in the entrepreneurial efforts that you're working in, at Made For, in life in general? What are you excited about?
I mean, I think right now what I'm excited about is seeing how our way of working, our way of communicating, our way of being is going to change, hopefully, coming out of this pandemic. I mean, I still think we have a ways to go, and we're all anxiously awaiting a vaccine and to feel safe. But I think that, we've had to, spend so much time alone and so much time away from human connection, that I think some magical things are going to happen when that human connection is available again. I mean, one example for me is I've never been to Burning Man, and I've always wanted to go. And I can't wait that my first Burning Man will be the Burning Man after the pandemic, because it'll clearly be the most incredible experience of all time. And since I'll be the first time, it'll be extra special for me.
Amazing. Very cool. Well, I think what I would tell anyone that is starting something, and a number of people have asked, how do you come up with an idea? How should I think about this business? And what I think is applicable, at least from my experience thus far, is that whatever you work on something that you really, really care about. So whether it's not enough to have an idea that you think you could make some money on, or that you think is a little bit nifty or gimmicky. Like, that's not, starting a company is going to take so much from you. It's going to take everything you have and more if you really want to start a company that's going to make a difference. And so I would spend extra attention early on, being very clear about what it is that you want to serve, what the bigger mission is. And once you figure out what you want, that, you know, what that clarity of purpose is that you have conviction around, that you're excited about pursuing, start taking steps. And it can be the smallest steps possible. You know, I think steps with Made For started by reading books and reading more books and reading more books. And then eventually that led to conversations and friendships and dialogues. And eventually, you know, here we are a year into it with thousands and thousands of customers all across the country. So start small and recognize that that small effort over time leads to really powerful places, but make sure that you're pointed in the right direction, something that you really care about. Because if you're not, it's hard to rally the energy and the strength and the tenacity and the grit required to create success. And Blake knows that, you know, far more than I, but I just think that that is extra important. So that would be my advice to anyone watching today. If you want to start a company and you know, do something today and take the smallest step, figure out what that small step is that you can take and do it today. And then Blake, over to you for the last word.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, sometimes that's just like reading some books. You know, I mean, sometimes that's about, you know, having some conversations with people that are more knowledgeable about that industry or that space that you want to get in. You know, it's not always these major steps that unlock the big idea or get you started. I mean, it really is, you know, taking the time to really dedicate to moving forward in these small steps. And I think knowing that there's not a quick path to success or any kind of life transformation, once you really, you know, settle into that, it can be actually, you know, very enlightening.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks, brother, for making the time. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate the conversation, and we hope you all have a happy holidays, stay safe, and look forward to talking again soon.
Okay. Thanks, Pat. See you soon.
Cheers.